Unsolved crimes and cases can haunt us for years in an unpredictable world. From siblings who met after decades, to missing persons who had no chance of being found but yet did. Some incidents remain unexplained and unanswered. There is an end in sight. However, in 2023, numerous bizarre cold cases were magically solved by some very dedicated people. Police and private detectives are bringing much-needed closure to bereaved families. Join us as we go through 2023's most odd, intriguing, and bizarre events and harrowing accounts of cold cases that were eventually solved decades later. How were they cracked years afterwards, and who decoded them? Without further ado, let's walk onto the edge of the unknown. The case of Noel Renee. It was the morning hours of August 11, 2017, when someone stumbled upon the lifeless bodies of Noel Renee Trice and Brian Keith Lashley in their Fort Wayne, Indiana home. Noel was born on June 28, 1991. Brian, on the other hand, was born on the 7th of July in 1987. They were 25 and 29 years old, respectively. Officers immediately responded to the scene and found blood spattered throughout the residence. Investigators were able to determine that a party had taken place at the couple's home earlier that night, after questioning family members and guests who attended. Police began analyzing the scene of the crime. Law enforcement personnel carefully examined Noel's phone, discovered in the hallway for any fingerprints. Unsurprisingly, Noel's fingerprints were found all over the phone. But, surprisingly, another unknown fingerprint was also discovered. Detectives worked tirelessly to find a match for the mysterious fingerprint. Initially, they suspected that it may have belonged to Brian, but after running it through their database, they soon discovered that the fingerprint belonged to Dustin Neal, an old acquaintance of the couple. When questioned, Dustin revealed that he had known Noel for about 20 years, that he had gone straight to his mother's house right after the party, and, perhaps most intriguing of all, that he was aware of the couple's possession of 3 pounds of marijuana, which, according to Dustin himself, was worth a lot of money. With no evidence against him, Dustin was allowed to go home, and it seemed as though Noel and Brian's murderer would never be found. But then, a person was tracked down who had spoken to Dustin around the time of the murders. Unraveling yet an even bigger mystery, this individual revealed that Dustin contacted him on the 10th of June 2017. Dustin sounded on edge and claimed he had a large quantity of marijuana up for sale. In July 2022, another witness alerted police that Dustin Neal's half-brother had told him his brother was responsible for what had happened to Noel and Brian. Investigating further, authorities spoke with the half-brother in October of that same year, who confessed to hearing Dustin bragging about killing both Noel and Brian. In October of 2022, yet another witness came forward, this time claiming that Dustin had told them he was responsible for the deaths of Noel, Brian, and 5 other people. During that same month, police analyzed Dustin's cell phone, and they discovered that his phone signals would have placed him at the scene of the crime between 6:20 a.m. and 7:04 a.m. With so much evidence now in the police's possession, the truth was finally revealed. In an ill-conceived attempt to steal some marijuana, Neal entered the couple's home through a window, believing nobody was there. Unfortunately, he was then spotted by Brian. Unsure what to do, Neal lunged at Brian with a knife and murdered him. He then went on to do the same thing to Noel. On January 1st of 2023, Fort Wayne Police Department and the Allen County Sheriff's Department charged and arrested 35-year-old Neal in Wells County. Dustin will soon be extradited to Allen County, where he will be charged with the murder of Noel Renee Trice and Brian Keith Lashley. After nearly 6 years this crime was committed, justice has finally been served. The case of Lillian DeChloe. 89-year-old Lillian DeChloe was a former teacher and nurse who lived in Broward County in 1994. She suffered from memory loss and needed assistance with day-to-day activities. Her niece, June Nicholas, took care of her. On the afternoon of April 29, 1994, June entered her aunt's home only to find Lillian had been murdered. It appeared as though the assailant had gotten into the house through a bedroom window and ransacked the place, indicating it was largely not a targeted attack but rather a robbery gone wrong. In an effort to gather more information, the police diligently collected various objects from the crime scene as evidence. Years later, in 2004, detectives at Broward County Sheriff's Office retested Lillian's nightgown and discovered male DNA on it. Hoping to solve the case, Broward County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation in 2019. They examined previous records and DNA databases, combing them for any potential leads they may have missed. In the end, they found a likely suspect, a homeless man by the name of Johnny Mack Brown. Johnny Mack Brown was a former United States Marine who once lived just down the street from Lillian. His family members shared with detectives that he had been suffering from substance abuse and PTSD for a number of years, something which eventually led up to his death in 2010. In August 2022, investigators obtained a court order to unearth Brown's remains from the South Florida National Cemetery in Palm Beach County. Tests conducted by the Broward County Sheriff's Office Crime Lab revealed that Brown's DNA was a direct match with the DNA left on Lillian's nightgown. The truth was finally revealed. Johnny Mack Brown was responsible for what happened to Lillian. Lillian's case was now solved. When June Nicholas found out who her aunt's killer was, she had this to say: "I know that wherever she is, she can sleep in peace." The case of Amore Wiggins. On January 28, 2012, in Opelika, Alabama, a local stumbled upon a human skull near the Brookhaven Trailer Park on Hurst Street. After further inspection of the area, police officers discovered that there were more skeletal remains scattered about. Furthermore, a pink long-sleeve shirt with heart-shaped buttons was located just off the creek bank. Police could not determine if this garment belonged to the victim. Detectives concluded that the skull likely belonged to a young African-American girl between 4 and 7 years old. A deformity in her left eye indicated she may have been abused, while her bones revealed signs of malnourishment and neglect. Utilizing the help of forensic artistry, an image of what the girl may have looked like was unveiled. Despite reviewing school and birth records, detectives were unable to uncover any information on her identity. Therefore, she became known as the Opelika Jane Doe. 4 years later, in 2016, a Bible school teacher from the Greater Peace Church, which was located only 10 minutes away from where the remains were discovered, uncovered photographs of a little girl who bore a striking resemblance to the Opelika Jane Doe. The teacher told police that the girl's pictures were taken in the summer of 2011 and recalled that the girl had disheveled hair, was not very hygienic, and seemed reclusive or unable to communicate with other kids. The little girl was between 4 and 5 years old at the time. The teacher could not recall her name, and the church at which she attended had failed to register any of its children, leaving no traceable records. Working with what they've got, police used advanced imaging software to enhance the old photo as much as possible, hoping that a member of the public would help them identify the Opelika Jane Doe. Then, in 2017, experts from the University of South Florida's Institute for Forensic Anthropology performed a series of isotope tests on her bones and came to the conclusion that she probably lived in the southeastern parts of the United States. In January 2022, the help of Othram Laboratories was employed by the Opelika Police Department. Othram is an advanced forensic sequencing lab built to apply the power of modern parallel sequencing to forensic evidence. Her remains were sent to Othram's laboratory. A DNA extract from these remains was then synthesized, which facilitated the creation of a more comprehensive genealogical file. Taking matters further, the Opelika Police Department sought out the help of Barbara Ray Venter, a renowned geneticist who is mostly known for aiding police investigations with identifying the Golden State Killer to supply investigative leads. In January 2023, Othram was finally able to uncover the identity of the Opelika Jane Doe. She was a little girl by the name of Amore Jovea Wiggins. Amore's father was known as Lamar Vickerstaff, a 50-year-old native of Opelika. Lamar was serving in the U.S. Navy. Prior to the discovery's announcement, detectives journeyed to the Mayport Naval Station in Jacksonville, where Lamar was stationed at the time, and confronted him about his daughter's passing. Lamar refused to cooperate. When questioned about the girl's remains, Ruth, Lamar's wife, to whom he had been married since May 2006, informed detectives that she had no idea who she was or who her real mother might have been. It was later discovered that Amore's real mother was Sherry Wiggins, who hailed from Maryland. Sherry met Lamar Vickerstaff when she was only 19. Lamar was 35 and serving in the Navy at the time. The two lived in the same apartment complex. Soon after, they decided to take the next step and move in together when Sherry discovered her pregnancy. Despite this, Lamar's family was deeply angered by the fact that their son had a child out of wedlock. So the couple agreed to split up after coming to the realization that getting married wouldn't be feasible. At the age of 37, Sherry told detectives that she was indeed Amore's biological mother. She confirmed that Lamar and Ruth had received full legal custody over Amore back in 2009, that Sherry was paying child support to Lamar since then, and that her visitation rights were suspended at the time of Amore's death. Lamar and Ruth were apprehended in Jacksonville, Florida on January 17, 2023. They are currently being detained at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and are both charged with failure to report a missing child. In addition to these charges, Lamar is also facing a felony murder charge. Sherry, Amore's real mother, spoke out publicly, expressing her feelings on the community's reaction to her daughter's case. She stated that although some have been kind and understanding of her situation, many were quick to pass judgment on her without any knowledge of what truly happened. Despite this, Sherry said the only thing she was worried about was getting justice for Amore. She extended an immense amount of gratitude towards the Opelika Police Department, who never gave up on finding her missing child.